In the period between the Civil War and the Great Depression, the prevailing constitutional doctrine was known as dual federalism. It held that a precise separation of national and state power was both possible and desirable. That interpretation of federalism dissolved as the United States transitioned from a rural society to a modern society. Modern systems of transportation, commerce, and communication transcend local and state boundaries. They create interdependency, such that problems affecting Americans in one part of the country will affect Americans living elsewhere. A downturn in the economy, for example, has a ripple effect, eventually affecting almost every community and business. Interdependency has required Washington to assume a larger policy role. National problems typically require national solutions. Interdependency has also encouraged national, state, and local officials to cooperate in dealing with policy problems. Cooperative federalism is most visible during natural or man-made disasters, everything from hurricanes and wildfires to terrorist attacks, when officials at all levels pitch in to help. But it's an everyday thing. Local and state officials, for example, bear primary responsibility for dealing with disease outbreaks, but they get ongoing assistance from the Centers for Disease Control and other federal agencies. Cooperative federalism rests in part on the national government's superior fiscal position. States are in a bind when it comes to taxes. If they impose overly high taxes, they will lose people and firms to lower tax states. That puts a lid on their taxing capacity. The national government doesn't face the same constraint. In fact, it collects as much in taxes as do all 50 states and the thousands of local governments combined. In addition, the federal government, because it controls the currency, has nearly unlimited power to borrow money. The states do not. As a result, states depend on federal grants and aid for some of the revenue required to meet their residents' policy needs. Roughly a fifth of all money spent by state and local governments is obtained through grants they receive from the federal government. Although state governments sometimes complain that federal grants encroach on their authority, they generally welcome the money because it allows them to provide services they couldn't otherwise afford. As one observer said, "For governors, it's free money. They get the benefits, and they don't have to pay the political costs of raising the revenues." Now, it's clear that today's federalism is very different from what the framers had in mind when they wrote the Constitution more than 2 centuries ago. Would the framers approve of the shift in power to the national government? Some aspects of that shift would undoubtedly trouble them. Yet the flow of power from the states to the nation was something that the framers hoped for. They were the nationalists of their time and viewed the Constitution as the best hope of turning the 13 independent states into a cohesive nation. As George Washington, who chaired the Constitutional Convention, said, "In all our deliberation, we kept steady in our view that the greatest interest was the consolidation of our Union."